Back on Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Head over to youtube.com, put Locked On Sports Atlanta into your browser, subscribe to the channel, leave us a review, tell us what you think, some comments as well. Read through all of those. Thanks so much for being a part of the community. And of course, follow me on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. For those not on the YouTube channel, see this behind me? This feels like, in one way, it wasn't that long ago, but it feels like it's a million years ago. And for those that can't see and are listening on a podcast platform, I have a picture behind me, that cover of the AJC with the Braves as the champs and winning the World Series. And obviously, as we continue to celebrate that moment, but right now, the Braves are just floundering. And it's getting really frustrating. 19-23 right now on the season. Two bad innings yesterday in the game against Philadelphia. Tucker Davidson didn't pitch nearly as well as he did in his first start as the fifth starter, and the Braves couldn't muster enough off. Before you blink, they were down 7-0 in that game, cut it down a little bit, but still just couldn't do anything. Oh, and the Mets won. They won 13-3. They're not losing any series right now. And so the lead's 9 games right now. Now, we've talked a lot about the Braves' offensive struggles and just going through the list. It's Demerit at 217 and Duvall at 193 and 232 for Ozuna and 231 for Riley and 236 for Dansby and 240 for Ozzie Albies and 244 for Matt Olson. The only guy that's above, right now, Ronnie's at 274 with a 400 on base percentage. That leads your team. And look, I understand it's not so much about batting average and production. That's more important in everything. But do the Braves need to make any changes already? I don't think so. My thought is, you got to just get the guys that you have to start producing. I've heard people talking about Michael Harris and bringing him up and infusing him in, maybe Drew Waters to infuse him in or things like that. Maybe you go find another piece or whatever like that. Maybe you don't wait, like you did, because, you could use some outfield defensive help, and maybe you need an extra guy to be able to sit Duvall because he's struggling mightily with the bat. Maybe it'd be a good thing to rest Duvall a little bit. I'm not sure Duvall's a 155 game player right now, but you don't have a lot of choices in center field. I don't buy any of that. I don't think the problem is that they don't have the right guys. I think what you're seeing is there's maybe a little bit of a reality check that a lot of folks performed way up here last year. And the reality may be more of, you have guys that are somewhere in that middle tier. If you think about Marcell Ozuna, this was my big fear about the extent they needed to do it. It didn't cost them very much money. He's not killing your payroll or anything like that. He's not a $30 million player. It's just the idea of, he's a guy that had some beat up, bang up factor, had 2 pretty mediocre years in St. Louis. Yeah, he hit home runs out of the ballpark, didn't drive in a ton of runs, didn't score a ton of runs, didn't hit for a lot of average, didn't have a great on base. And I understand we got kind of suckered in by the 2020 pandemic season. He's leading the league in homers and RBI, and he's hitting 330. And okay, well, we got this guy as a steal. Okay, he's probably really not that player. Adam Duvall, is a guy that probably played out over his skis last year and leading the league in RBI. Don't think anybody saw that coming. He had a big power infused year. He's always got lots of power, but again, as I said, 4 years ago, he was a 195 hitter in the league. So, let's before I make this next point, let's talk about Austin Riley. Maybe the league caught up to Austin Riley a little bit. That's the game of baseball. Austin Riley came up, was red hot, couldn't get out, and then the league adjusted. Last year had a big season, one of the most consistent hitters all the way through, and you thought he was on the fast track, and then it sort of has dissipated this year, and he really can't get a lot of things going. He's got some power, and he's driving in some runs, but it's certainly not, when you're a guy that hit 310, 312, whatever it was last year, and you're 80 points off that this year, and your on base isn't there. Last year had a really good on base percentage. This year he's only at 313 on base percentage. And I think that's part of why Snicker hit him at the 3 spot, was the idea of, okay, he's my best, maybe all around hitter. He can hit for average. He can hit for power. He can draw walks. We haven't seen that this year. But I don't think it's a matter of the Braves have to go in and start making changes. I don't think infusing Michael Harris makes any sense. He's a double-A player right now. I don't know what you think Drew Waters is going to come in and do for you. Maybe he can spell Duvall a little bit to where you can put him on the bench. But outside of that, that's not going to change the dynamic of your team. They need the core of their guys that they are going to be in this for the long haul with. Ozzie, Riley, those guys especially have to perform. Matt Olson has to get himself back on track. Do I think that they will? Yes. I don't think Ozzie Albies is not going to go from being maybe the number 1 or 2 best offensive second baseman in baseball to being just some middle of the road player. I don't think Austin Riley is going to go from winning a Silver Slugger last year to he can't get out of his own way. I don't think the drop off in the gap between where they were last year and where I expect them to be this year is going to be that hard of a fall. Do I think Duvall and Ozuna are going to magically turn it on? No. I think you sort of get what you get with those two guys. I think that you caught some of their best moments over the last couple of years with those guys, but it doesn't mean that they can't be part of a productive lineup for you. You got to get your core guys that you're going to be here with for a whole bunch of years. That's Ronnie, Olson, Ozzie, and Riley. Like those 4 guys are the linchpin to your team. Those are the 4 guys that are going to be here for the next handful of years, and those guys have to start performing. So I don't think the Braves need to panic as far as finding another player, even in the starting rotation. People are getting frustrated now because Tucker Davidson just didn't have a good start. You got to let some of these guys work through it. I understand the Braves are in win the World Series now mode, and I get that, and I'm with you. But at the same time, we're talking about a 5th starter. The reason you need a 5th starter right now is because you're in the middle of a stretch or starting a stretch of 17 games in 17 days. So because you have all these games in a row with no off days, you are going to need that 5th starter because you're not going to have enough off days to be able to kind of tweak your rotation and things like that. And you've seen as the Braves started getting into having some off days here or there, Snitker tweaked his rotation, did he not? Changing it up a little bit to have this matchup against this team and this, that, and the other. You can do a little bit of that when you have a day off here and a day off there and a day off here and all that kind of stuff. But you're in a 17-game stretch right now. And you need that 5th starter. But I'm not going to just try to keep going out and spending money and putting capital in the guy just to find a guy to come in and be my 5th starter. You got to figure out if guys like Tucker Davidson can be part of the long-term solution. I think you've seen Kyle Wright. Looks like he's a guy that is going to be part of the long-term solution. And you have to start finding out in your system, is Tucker Davidson a major league caliber pitcher? Is Huascar Noah a major league caliber pitcher, right? You have to find out about some of these guys that are in there. So I'm not for the Braves getting into making any moves right now. I think you just have to get the core of your team, especially the 4 guys of Ronnie, Riley, Albies, and Matt Olson. You have to get those guys on track. Long way to go, but 9 games out as we're hitting the end of May isn't a very good look right now for the world champs. All right, when we get back, is there anybody besides Trae Young that you legitimately want to keep for the Atlanta Hawks? We'll talk about that next. It's Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.